Hey folks, we currently have a couple people still joining, so we'll give it just a couple seconds and then we'll get started. All right, are folks ready? Someone can advance the slides. Thanks. So just a quick welcome. Hi everyone, my name is Devin Bruce. I'm the Director of Legislative and Political Affairs here at MAPE. My staff provide support to both the Political Council and to the MAPES PAC. And today we're glad to join you to host the statewide election forum for the Political Council. We currently have 3 candidates participating in today's election forum. Local 2101's Nicole June, Local 301's William Truman, and Local 1002's John Van Overen. Before we jump into it, we're going to first cover a bit of the basics, some logistical stuff, and then talk a little bit about the Political Council and then this forum. Just as a reminder, we are recording for folks, and they will be both available on the MAPE website as well as the our YouTube channel. Looks like we have a couple more folks joining us in the waiting room. Great. So first, the Political Council's purpose is to help define our legislative priorities, educate members, and encourage members to engage in both the legislative and political electoral processes. The council not only sets legislative priorities, but implements strategies to organize around those priorities, including our political education and our electoral work. So as most probably know, Tuesday's elections results for the 2025 legislative session are a little bit murky and unstable at the moment. We currently have 2 recounts that are going on, and if the current results remain in effect, the House will be divided evenly 67 to 67, and so there will likely have to be a power sharing agreement between the DFL and the GOP to elect a speaker and form committees. That being said, MAPE still plans on and will advocate strongly for the advancements in our workplaces, as well as robust funding for our agencies, so that we can negotiate better and stronger contracts that reflect the work we're doing. We do have Lobby Day coming up, so please, folks, add this to your calendars. We have a QR code that you can scan. It is on Thursday, March 6th, 2025. We are still putting together the details with the Political Council on what that's going to entail. Some of you may know that the House Legislative Office Building, the State Office Building, is under construction, barely standing, and so most folks will be in Centennial this year, and we are working on providing our logistics to better match that so that people have a really good experience. And now it's time to start the election forum. So this year, 3 fellow MAPE members are running for 2 open positions on MAPE's Political Council. They will all be on the ballot when MAPE elections open on December 2nd and close on December 12th. We've got 2 other election forums coming up that we hope you'll also join us for. Tuesday, November 12th, we'll host the statewide secretary forum from noon to 1 p.m. And on Wednesday, November 20th, from noon to 1 p.m. as well, we'll host the statewide presidential election forum. We're now going to start having the candidates introduce themselves who would like to serve on the political council, but we'd like to go a little bit over the rules before we start that. This is your opportunity to ask them questions. Please submit in the Q&A, not the chat. In the Q&A, questions that you would like the candidates to answer at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If we run out of time to answer all the questions, you can also email the candidates directly. Their contact information is available on the MAPE website on the top left side. For the rules, each candidate will have 90 seconds for opening and closing statements, as well as 60 seconds to 90 seconds for each question. You will get a 10-second warning before your time is up. We have our timekeepers here, so thank you for their participation and their help in doing this. When your time is up, your microphone will automatically be muted. Candidates will wait until they are prompted to unmute and show their video. Only one candidate will have their video on and microphone on at the time. Also, a special thank you to Stephanie Boucher of the Statewide Elections Committee for joining us to be our timekeeper today. And so we'll go ahead and get started. So we'll just wait for that. So first, we'll start with a welcome from Nicole June. She has 90 seconds for her opening statement. She's from 2101. If you would like to turn on your video and unmute, and please begin.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today and for listening to the political candidates. I'm Nicole June. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm running for re-election to the political council because I believe in the power of organized people to make political change. Uniting labor, politics, and community work makes MAPE stronger, and it builds a better life for all Minnesotans. As a fourth generation union member who grew up in Wisconsin, I saw what happens when anti-labor legislators get elected and public unions are attacked. Worker protections that unions built over 100 years were overturned in mere months. So I worked really hard to fight those attacks in 2011 and collective bargaining and I was on the front lines when that happened. And I continue that work through my service at the state of Minnesota and as a proud MAPE member and leader. I hope to continue that work to advance important campaigns like the 32-hour work week and ensuring that workers with exempt status are not exploited. I currently work on the legislative team at the Department of Human Services and have previously held positions in community relations and also the health economics program at the Department of Health. I've been an active MAPE member since I joined state service in 2015. I'm a steward in Local 2101. I've also previously been a vice chair and served as chair as the GRC. So I hope with my experience and my passion for politics, you'll re-elect me for political council. Thank you.
I don't think anyone can hear you, Devin.
My bad. It's managing too many windows. Next up is Local 301's William Truman. If you can make sure you are unmuted and go ahead and begin.
Hello, I am William Truman. I am from Local 301. I use they, them pronouns. I am a database developer at Minute. I don't have nearly the long resume that Nicole has. I am new to the union. This is my first union job that I've been a part of from the private sector, but I have been active in political campaigns and other organizing and activism outside of unions for many years, starting with a lot of activism being active in Bernie Sanders' 2016 campaign. I have seen a lot of what labor has done, and I believe very much in that the power to get our politicians to change and protect workers' rights. It comes from labor comes from unions. I would, as a member of the political council, I would like to help educate our members more in understanding what the labor can do and why it's so important, and to see wins that have happened before. I am also in favor of the 32-hour work week campaign. I think that's a great thing to push for legislative agenda. I'm also a member of the Ceasefire Caucus, and we've been organizing to try to push and would try to push for divestment
10 seconds.
and other things. But yeah, I'm looking forward to any questions you have, and I hope you elect me to the political council. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Our third candidate to give opening remarks is Local 1002's John Van Overen. Make sure you are unmuted and go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for having us here today. So John Van Overen, I also go by JVO when there's too many Johns in the room. I've been involved with MAPE for a while. I first started back when I started state service in 2013. I became a steward pretty quickly, and then I ended up being in MNA for a while, left the state, and then I came back, and I have since been a steward and now the regional steward director for Region 10, as well as previously been a membership secretary at 1002 and a vice president. And so I've been involved with the union pretty solidly since I came back in the summer of 2019. And one of the reason why I'm seeking to join the political council is, been working on organizing with the Ceasefire Caucus, like Will. And I see a lot of potential in organizing that we haven't been doing a great job with, I think, over the last 5 years, even 10 years since I originally joined. I think we really need to engage the membership. The fact that we are not strike ready, I think, is on the shoulders of the political council and the organizing council. And that would be a real focus for me, to educate our members politically, and also to get our members engaged, active, and organized to press the legislature and the governor. I think that we need to remember that we have an inherent antagonism.
Thanks, John. Just a reminder for folks, if you have questions for our candidates, please submit them at the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. I would like to give priority for members to ask questions rather than us to just generate or on the fly some of questions. So please get those submitted. We do have one currently in the submitted. So we will start first with William Truman. You will have 60 seconds to answer this question. So the question is, what will you do to organize support for freedom from gun violence?
Yeah, so I would, I think, gun control laws are a very hotly debated topic. There's often a lot of pushback because there is the constitutional Second Amendment. But I think it's very important to, do education on again, organizing more unions coming together around this, because it's true, the gun violence in our schools and the threat that our children face going to schools is unacceptable as a way of living. And I think unions are where the pressure can come from if we work together, if we act and organize collectively, and that's what I would like to see. Or I'd like to do as part of the political council, is help educate and activate members to become more involved in these, to add their voices, to become a more powerful organizing method to get something like real gun control, not just sort of half measures that seem to always be the route that the legislation tends to go.
Thank you. Next is John Van Overen, and just to reiterate the question, what will you do to organize support for freedom from gun violence? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, so great question. I think that we would need to have a discussion and maybe even set up a group within MAPE to open up solutions that we would want to put forward and organize people to press our legislators. I always try to think of things in material terms for a union and how can we materially affect change. And one of the things that we could do is we could also look at divesting our pensions from firearms manufacturers, sending a clear message that we do not want our pensions and our retirement tied to it. But I also think with legislature, we need to help work with members who are hunters. We have a lot of members outstate that do use firearms for recreational purposes. And we want to make sure we have their buy-in too. Otherwise, we're going to find that the solidarity within our union to push this might be even more divided. Oh, I thought that was the end. But anyway, I'm done.
Thank you. And our third and final candidate is Nicole June. The question again is, what will you do to organize support for freedom from gun violence? You may begin.
Great. Thank you. I think that's a great question. And from the role of the political council, I think one of the first steps is to have a conversation and how we incorporate that into our legislative platform, because that really informs a lot of things. First, it informs what our MAPE legislative staff spend time on and focus on during legislative staff, and what our lobby day looks like, right? And then it also helps inform entities like our MAPE PAC and the questionnaire on how we endorse candidates when we move into the electoral system. So it kind of helps the whole ecosystem of our political work. Secondarily, I would also want to talk to members that feel deeply about this issue and see what they're willing to do to build a campaign around it. The political council is only 7 people, so it really needs to be something that we build, and it's not just the 7 of us doing something about it.
Thank you. So we have a second question that was submitted. So the question will be for John to answer first. And so the question is, how will we work with the divided legislature to support student loan forgiveness? You have 60 seconds. You may begin now.
Yeah, I think now, this is a great contract piece that we have negotiated, and it's on a, agency by agency basis, and we know it hasn't been incredibly effective. I think what we need to do is reach out to our legislators to press the governor, especially those of the same party. I know that a lot of people reached out during last contract negotiations to their legislators who did put pressure on Walz to start intervening a little. I think that's the best route we can do on this with our contract, and also go for stronger contract language, which isn't necessarily in the realm of the political council, but we can build that support within the union. Perhaps there is a legislative path forward where you could pass a law saying state employees can have their loans forgiven after a certain amount of time. I think that's a harder route to go than to negotiate it within our contract, but it's something to explore, and we can talk to some of our more supportive legislators to see if that can happen.
Yeah.
Thank you. So next up is Nicole. Again, the question is, how will we work with divided legislature to support student loan forgiveness? You have 60 seconds. You may begin.
Great. I think there's a lot of things we can do. First of all, it's a great step forward to have that may language in the contract. I think it needs to be shall. The political council was doing a survey during delegate assembly this year about some of the big campaigns we want to organize around and talk about at lobby day, student loans being one of them, because that is an issue that isn't going away, and it is really widely and deeply felt. We have a lot of action going around in a lot of our regions of MAPE around student loans. So working with legislators who also have student loans and feel that deeply, I think is really important. I think also making sure that agencies have it in their budgets so that they don't have the excuse that we can't afford it, because I think that's a major holdback for a lot of folks. So when we're advocating for our agencies to be funded at the legislature. It's having conversations with legislators about including that as part of it.
Thank you. And as a reminder, if you have questions, please submit them in the Q&A. William, you have the last word on this one. Just as a reminder, the question is, how will we work with the divided legislature to support student loan forgiveness? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, so I think this is a very important issue to fight for. I do think, and especially I guess, with thinking about the divided legislature, I think making sure that our members are contacting their legislators on both sides, because while one side typically tends to be less supportive of forgiveness, student loans affect everybody, and or across all political parties. There are people in both parties that have student loans that would benefit greatly if they were no longer burdened with the weight of that debt. And I think we can educate around that, and we can activate our members to help pressure both sides, so that there are people on both sides that will come together and say, yeah, this is something that the people of Minnesota want. They want to see student loan forgiveness built into the legislation in some way, either for state employees or for a more broader program.
Thank you very much. So we have another question that's been submitted. First person up will be Nicole. This one, you'll have 90 seconds to respond. The question is, how would you address concerns that the MAPE Ceasefire Caucus promotes anti-Semitic ideas? Nicole, you have 90 seconds. Begin.
Sorry. How would I address concerns that the Ceasefire Caucus promotes anti-Semitic ideas? Is the question. I think how would I address concerns is how we do organizing at MAPE. It's about having one-on-one conversations on what is actually being talked about, what was passed in the resolution at delegate assembly, and what's at stake. And I think when we're not having conversations and not being primed to have difficult conversations one-on-one, a lot can be assumed. That's a conversation we've had a lot on the political council, is how do we build up MAPE's political infrastructure at the local level, and how do we practice having difficult conversations? Because a lot of things in politics aren't easy, and there are a lot of issues that are divisive, but at the core of them, we need to learn how to have those difficult conversations and come together and really talk about the humanity in all of it. So I think by having those conversations, it really helps dispel rumors that come about, or miscommunications. And so I think when we're able to do that and talk member to member and human to human, it helps clarify things.
Thank you. Next up is William. And so just a reminder, you have 90 seconds for this question. The question is, how would you address concerns that the MAPE Ceasefire Caucus promotes anti-Semitic ideas? You may begin.
Yeah, so as a member of the Ceasefire Caucus, we have been doing one-on-one outreach to individual members. We talked to over 100 delegates. One-on-one, we've gone to local meetings to talk to people about this. I think it is very important to educate people that there is nothing anti-Semitic in saying, we don't want to support the ongoing human rights violations that are occurring in Gaza. There are workers just like us that live in Palestine and Gaza, and it is not a belief of Judaism that they need to be bombed. It's not anti-Semitic to say we want to preserve life in all things. And I think having these conversations is difficult, but I don't think we should be afraid to have them. I think people believe in a nonviolent kind of approach. They would like to see peace on all sides. People don't want to see women, children, civilians getting getting killed in unnecessary violence.
Thank you. And last is John. You have 90 seconds just as a reminder. And the question is, how would you address concerns that the MAPE Ceasefire Caucus promotes anti-Semitic ideas? You may begin.
Yeah, like William said, we've reached out and talked to tons of locals, tons of members, where we invite that conversation from anybody who is concerned. I think that when you look at the numbers across the nation, this has become very much a movement of a majority of Americans have an issue with the human rights violations that are going on in Palestine, Gaza, West Bank, and even Lebanon. It's hard to see those pictures and not feel a sense of shame and remorse around this. Now, in terms of anti-Semitic, I mean, we have a number of members who are Jewish and who have spoken to this. I think they're some of our best representatives, and I would connect that individual with some of our Jewish members to talk. This is not about, if you take away the kind of the identities that people like to put out there, and you look at two groups of power, one who has the strong military power and the control, and another one who, yes, they have people who are antagonistic and have created violence, but don't have the control. I think most people see that and they see that imbalance. It's not something that is about Israel existing or not. It's about protecting workers and families, just like we would want to be
10
protecting
seconds.
ourselves. I see that unions in the past, I brought this up at DA, that Eugene Debs went to jail for speaking out against World War I and the harm that it would cause workers.
Thank you. So next question that we have submitted in the Q&A is, we'll first go to William. And the question is, you'll have 60 seconds for this one. What ideas do you have to educate state employees about the legislative process so that they can be more involved beyond just lobby day?
I think some good ideas would be like the lunch and learns, or going to locals like the local meetings. We've had a lot of really good experience with that in the Ceasefire Caucus, being invited to talk to the entire membership that comes to the local meetings and provide feedback to show. So from this perspective, the political council, we would do it in terms of what is the legislative process, what government bodies exist that affect the work that unions can and can't do, and how do we strengthen that. I think those are the two main ways I would like to see more outreach from the political council in rank and file organizing.
Thank you. So next person up is John, and you will have 60 seconds to answer the question. The question is, what ideas do you have to educate state employees about the legislative process so they can be more involved beyond just lobby day?
Yeah, I think constant communication. I think, we need to reach out to locals, do a lot more of lunch and learns, and also, give constant updates and maybe even do some spotlights and focuses on specific issues that we have on our legislative agenda. I think political education is super important, and I don't think we as a union do enough of it. It's how we build solidarity. So when we are able to discuss specific issues, how we're addressing it, we can also get feedback from our union on what they think and how they think they can best address it with their legislature and their locals. I can't say enough about how the political council really has a much bigger role inward right now than we do outward in explaining to legislators. We need to build that strike-ready, well-educated, and engaged membership in order to have any power outside of the organization.
Thank you. Last is Nicole. You have 60 seconds to answer the question. And the question is, what ideas do you have to educate state employees about the legislative process so they can be more involved beyond just lobby day?
Great. I think anywhere we can. We do multiple times throughout the year reach out to many locals and try to do presentations. Um, Throughout the years, we're getting better reception and yeses, which is good. I know we've done a handful of them this fall. I think continuing to do that. Some locals have MAPE 101s and trainings where we can go and do more in depth hour-long trainings on that, expanding that. We started a pilot program last year. I think expanding that where we have a point person in locals that we can have better communication. So every local meeting, there's an update on our work at the legislative and political levels. So it's not just waiting for one of the 7 members to come, once or twice a year. It's having monthly updates, as well as regular
Wait a second.
communication. And then also increase in materials like we have created videos and infographics in the past for things like lobby day. So continuing to build off that. But I don't think there's ever too many opportunities to communicate and
So we have a couple more questions. The next one we'll have John begin. You'll have 90 seconds. This is a little bit more of a in-depth question. Can you give an example of how you organize members to affect legislative change, and how do you plan to reach out? You have 90 seconds.
So how I've affected legislative change with members? Well, I haven't had that opportunity. I haven't been on the political council or been a leadership on that. But I can talk about how we organize members around the Ceasefire Caucus. And that was through intentional outreach, finding members who might not be 100% in agreement of all aspects, but see the human rights and the connection between working class people within that issue. And that issue is going to probably turn into a legislative issue. We're probably going to have to organize and work with the legislature to get a law passed. Now, I love going out and having conversation with members, trying to find that common ground. And I love hearing from members who don't agree with me, but might be able to build some solidarity within that. In terms of affecting legislature, I work really closely with Senator Marty on a number of things. I know last year, I spoke to him 2 sessions ago, I spoke to him many times about the moving the improvement of our contract to an executive role, not having the legislature go through it. He's communicated back with me some of the issues with the legislation. With the legislature that would affect us that I can communicate back to members. But I think building that relationship with the members and that relationship with the legislature to communicate back and forth is really important. And members knowing they can reach out and their legislators actually listen to them when they do is really important.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next is Nicole. Again, you have 90 seconds. The question is, can you give an example of how you organize members to affect legislative change, and how will you reach out?
Sure. An example that I have pre-political council was my involvement in paid parental leave campaign. There was a contract component, there was a legislative component, and a lot of member organizing. So I was involved in the labor management task force negotiations and also some of our political work. It involved a lot of one-on-ones, a lot of organizing around it, summits, planning, showing up at the legislature, almost doing, meeting the speaker with a bunch of members, approaching, making sure that things get on the agenda, and really building up confidence and demystifying members meeting with legislators. They live in your neighborhood. They're members just like you, or they're members of your community. We need to hold them accountable to make sure their votes reflect what you need. And so I think it takes a lot of work and communication and building up momentum. And it's also building campaigns, again, that are widely and deeply felt, that people care about, that they're willing to act on, and that there's follow through. And also breaking down the organizing and political piece so that there's not a barrier in between them.
10 seconds.
So I think that's one of the big examples. And, and both in organizing and politics, everything goes down to relationships.
Thank you. Last, we have William. Again, the question, which you have 90 seconds to answer, is, can you give an example of how you've organized members to affect legislative change, and how will you plan to reach out?
Yeah, I also have not had the opportunity to organize members for legislative change. I'm new to the state workforce. I started working here in February, but through the Ceasefire Caucus, like JVO also mentioned, we have done the type of organizing and outreach to get membership engagement, to grow our caucus through that, to help people understand the importance of why the union needs to take a voice in this, and how union actions can apply that political pressure that is so necessary for our legislators or representatives to act on. They receive lobbying from other organizations that are counter to what we want, and we need to be able to be an effective force against that. And I think that starts by membership engagement, having these one-on-one conversations, building a more cohesive union within, before going to the legislature with just a handful of people that maybe aren't as supportive. Or I think it's very important that we have the rank and file membership built up in order to apply the pressure that we need.
10 seconds.
That's all.
Thank you. So next question we have in the chat. We'll start with Nicole, and we'll do 60 seconds for this question. The question is, what would you do to encourage support for environmental protections, especially protecting the Boundary Waters Canoe Area wilderness, which will likely be threatened under the incoming presidential administration?
Right. That is a great question. And I think it goes along the lines of the previous question around addressing gun violence. And I have a feeling, due to the political times we're in, there's going to be a lot of issues that are going to be even more important for Minnesota to focus on and make sure that we have strong protections and we keep strong protections in Minnesota. And so I think it's going to be exceedingly important for the political council to be open to hear from members, to hear what members are excited about organizing around, and for the political council to work very closely with the organizing council and other areas around MAPE to train up and get folks ready to organize around themselves and have the materials they need to advocate in those areas. We're not going to be able to have capacity to cover all the areas, but how can we help people do that for what they're passionate about and have the tools that they need to succeed?
Thank you. Next, we have William. Again, the question is, what would you do to encourage support for environmental protections, especially protecting the Boundary Waters Canoe Area wilderness, which will likely be threatened under the next presidential administration? You have 60 seconds. You might begin.
Yeah, I agree. The protection of our boundary waters is very important, and we've already seen from, I think another aspect of this is things like the Supreme Court overturned the Chevron doctrine, so our agencies are no longer as powerful to act. And in addition to the threats to the environment, which a lot of people care about, these are direct threats to our jobs as people. I am a database developer. I'm partnered at PCA. I have heard from people that there's concern over the direction this new administration might take us, and the threat it poses to our jobs. I think that is a good starting point for conversations for organizing to activate people. If you don't care personally about the boundary waters, you probably are working with someone who does, or whose job is going to be threatened by it, or who likes to go up there for vacations. I think it's a good way to build sort of relationships between us and really push back on any actions that are trying to take away the protections we have for it so far.
Thank you. Last, we have John. Again, we have 60 seconds for this question. The question is, what would you do to encourage support for environmental protections, especially protecting the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness, which will likely be threatened under the next presidential administration?
Yeah, so I think the first thing, and this is like the gun question, also the gun violence question, I think an important role of the political council is to help empower those members who are concerned about it to build a rank and file movement. It can't just come from the top. We can't hit all the issues for organizing that are out there, but we can support members in the rank and file who want to. And I think that's across the board. That's an important role of the political council, is to help support rank and file movements. And so they can be heard, they can have conversations. We have everyday members engaged in the movement. The boundary waters are super important. I think we run into an antagonism with our union brothers up there and sisters up there who are working in the mining industry. I do think we need to reach out to them to find a way that we can build a sustainable future of protecting the boundary waters while not impacting their lives. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to build that cross-union support as we move for other issues. And so I see a role of MAPE of working.
Thank you. So we currently have no more questions in the Q&A. We do have about 18 minutes left in the forum, so I would encourage folks to put them in the chat if you have them. This is your opportunity to ask some questions that you want to hear answers to that will influence the direction of the political council. So while we wait for some in the chat, we do have some questions prepared on our own. We'll go ahead and go to that while we wait. The first question, or the first person who will be up is William, and we will have 90 seconds for this question. It is MAPE's rank and file membership resembles the political spectrum of Minnesota, and despite our leadership being a bit more on the progressive side, talk about some ways that you would speak with MAPE's about MAPE's political activities and values with somebody who is on the different side of the political spectrum than your own. You have 90 seconds, and please dig a bit deeper than meeting them where they're at.
Sure. Yeah, I think I'd say the starting point, yeah, is to lead with empathy and to meet people where they are, to have these conversations. But that's not the ending point. You know, you have to get to work. I think when we talk about progressive ideology or things that progressives, are fighting for, oftentimes that gets kind of pivoted into a question about identity politics, or which groups or which marginalized groups need to be protected or deserve things over others. And then people start thinking that somebody is getting preferential treatment. And I think that is a poor way to focus on this. I think when you talk about things like, feeding kids in schools and letting women have the right to bodily autonomy, and ensuring that, there are adequate protections for workers. These are things that are broadly supported across the entire, American public. When you detach things from a left or right ideology, people are more open to hearing about them as if it's just a standalone issue. And that's the way I would try to approach these, is to try and say, well, this isn't about a party aligned issue. And if whatever party that supports, protecting workers' rights and ensuring that the increasing wage gap between the billionaire class and the working class doesn't grow higher, I would support them. I would work with anybody who is willing and believes in these actions. And I think that's the way to do it, to build bridges.
Thank you. Next, we have John. Again, 90 seconds to answer this. And the question is, MAPE's rank and file membership resembles the political spectrum of Minnesota, despite our leadership being more progressive. Talk about some ways that you would speak with MAPE about MAPE's political activities and values with somebody who's on the different side of the political spectrum than yourself, and dig a bit deeper than just meeting them where they're at.
Yeah. So, I see unions as probably the most powerful political force that could exist for workers. Once again, I really believe that we should be fighting for material change. And material change benefits all members. William really made a great point that a lot of these issues are actually that the union can fight for are actually pretty universally held across political spectrum. I know MAPE in the past has typically supported Democratic legislators and politicians because they have outspokenly been in favor of labor. I think that's important, but I also see that unions are in opposition to power. We're in power for our members and for workers, and we need to remember that regardless of the political spectrum. So if somebody in power wants to ally with us, I don't care what party they are, if they're working in solidarity for an issue that we find important. And that, I think, is the clutch and the key to solidarity, is finding those material things that we can all agree on that we need to work together. Also, a union's a democracy. You're not always going to get your personal ideology expressed through it. But hopefully, things like a higher wage, healthcare, fighting for workers across the state that support our economy is something that we can all get behind.
Thank you. Nicole, you have the last one. So just to reiterate, you have 90 seconds. The question is, MAPE's rank and file membership resembles the political spectrum of Minnesota, despite our leadership being more progressive. Talk about some ways you would speak about MAPE's political activities and values with somebody who is on the different part of the political spectrum than yourself. And please dig a bit deeper than simply meeting them where they're at.
Absolutely. I have these conversations a lot of the time. As being a member of both the political council and our MAPE PAC, I get a lot of questions about, and a lot of people say, oh, I don't do politics, or I don't like politics. And I really try to talk about the distinction between being partisan and being political. And one of our goals on the political council is to make political not such a dirty word. I think as state employees, no matter what we do is political. Our boss is elected, right? So I try to bring it back to our guiding principles on our legislative platform, and that's about supporting equitable compensation and respectful treatment of all state employees, supporting efforts to provide sustainable resources for state government operations, and supporting a middle-class, family-friendly agenda, ensuring equal opportunity for all, and talking about values and what that means for people, and what a labor-friendly agenda looks like, and where people's values lie within that, and having that conversation, and that sets partisanship aside, right? And how we build what they want to see and what it takes to get there, and then we build a relationship from that, right? So yeah, that's how the conversation usually goes.
Thank you. So we still don't have any other questions submitted. We are coming pretty close to time. We may have time for one more question if folks want to quickly submit that. Otherwise, we probably have time for one more question for 60 seconds, which I guess I will just start now. So first up would be John. You have 60 seconds. And this year was an election year. Did you participate in any of the MAPE or Labor 2020 sponsored events? And if so, what were they? And did you have any people join you with them?
You mean go on door knocking, aspects like that? I mean, I've gone out and our local has organized door knockings in the past. We went and helped Heather Gustafson with her campaign and Breon Curran, and we also went down and helped Mohammed Zainab in Minneapolis. So, I mean, I've gone out and door knocked. I don't always do it through MAPE. I do a lot of work within my Senate district as well. I think political action and turnout is important, and I think it needs to be labor focused. I'm always encouraging and working with my members to reach out to their legislators to affect change. This last year, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't terribly motivated. I didn't feel like either any of the candidates really spoke to my heart and soul.
10 seconds.
So it was hard to go out and door knock, even as part of my Senate district. And that was pretty universally felt with a lot of labor folks. And so, yeah, I'll be honest with you, I chose to.
Thank you. Nicole, you're next. You have 60 seconds. And the question is, this year was an election year. Did you participate in any of the MAPE or Labor 2024 sponsored election events? And if so, what were they? And did you have any people come out and join you?
Yes, I have been door knocking since June. I did 30 some shifts through the MAPE pack. And, I did see a lot of enthusiasm actually for MAPE members, especially we have a handful of MAPE members that ran for election, and I think all of our MAPE members won. So it's really exciting to see that fellow MAPE members are getting elected and holding office, and we have that experience at the table making decisions. I was also helped participate along with a bunch of stewards, sending out information to folks about the ability and state law to vote during election day without loss of pay or accruals. So that was important in doing that text banking. Obviously, electoral politics is just one step
10
in the
seconds.
process, but I think it's really important as a leader to be seen out there talking to folks and building those relationships.
Thank you. William, you have the final say on the last of the questions. So reminder, you have 60 seconds. And the question is, this year was an election year. Did you participate in any of the MAPE or Labor 2024 sponsored election events? And if so, what were they? And did you have anybody join you?
I did not participate in any of them this year. As I said, I joined the union this year, and the first thing that I really got involved with was the ceasefire caucus this summer. I have door knocked in the past for Bernie Sanders. I did door knocking and phone banking in 2016 a lot for him. I often am calling and reaching out to my representatives on issues, both state, local, federal, and I'm very familiar with that, but that hasn't been through any type of union organization. I would love to participate more in them in the next midterms or the next time around. I just did not have still learning the all of what MAPE does. I didn't know about the political action committee and until I think September, October. So, but I think it's important to be active in electoral politics and to try and get political leaders that support us into power.
All right, thank you. So now we'll end with some closing statements. Candidates will have 90 seconds to kind of give their closing. We'll go in reverse order from the opening, which means John is up first. You have 90 seconds, so go ahead and begin when you are ready.
Yeah. So my seeking the political council is to build worker strength, union worker strength, defend our public service workers. We're constantly under attack. Also fight for a greater voice for voices that haven't been heard within our union. I think we have a membership that needs to engage more and be more involved. And I think through an active internal building political council, we can do that. I always will push for material change. We have a lot of social issues. I think our politicians and elected officials and the general public do a lot with that. I think we need to look at how we can improve our material well-being as workers and those of other workers and other unions. I really do see a role for the political council building a class struggle political movement with other unions and build that solidarity, especially with other public sector unions. And I really do think change comes when we organize and demand it. I've been organizing people in my local community for a long time to pressure the school board. I've been organizing folks within the DFL locally to help find good candidates to run for local elections. And I think Maple does have a role to build those local grassroots rank and file movement. And the political council should really be about engaging our members politically and internally. And I hope to have your vote this December.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have William. You have 90 seconds for your closing. You may begin when you're ready.
I believe that unions are and labor is the strongest and most importantly, like the only real source of counterweight to the power that corporations and political and I guess the Citizens United kind of thing have over our legislation. There is a constant pushback against labor, and with state employees being government employees, there's often an idea of government waste or expenditure. There is a tendency, especially in potentially the upcoming administration, that we will see a lot of reduction in government agencies. And I think the way to combat that is by having a strong, cohesive membership that is educated and connected and has the relationships with one another to be willing to stand up and fight for one another. I think it's not just what the union can do for its own members too, but I think it's about building that cohesiveness with other unions like AFSCME, like the teachers unions, like MPEA, or county workers, other city workers. We are all public employees, and we can act together much stronger. When we're united, we can bargain, but divided, we beg.
10 seconds.
I think, I look forward to being a part of the council, and I hope you vote for me in December.
Thank you. Nicole, you have 90 seconds. Begin when you're ready.
Great. Thanks to everyone for showing up today, especially on a very full political week, for taking time out of your workday to listen to more politics. A couple pieces I wanted to touch on that weren't asked in questions. I think a key role of the political council members is to really develop political leaders in MAPE too. So leadership development is a key piece for me. I think working with our coalition building work group is essential for different coalition groups, be they labor or issue organizing or other groups that are important that advance the same issues and campaigns that we care about. And obviously the organizing council, because we can't do good campaigns that are political without the organizing council. But in the end, I hope to continue my work on the political council to build on the successes and strengthen our political knowledge and infrastructure. I want to see building local capacity from the ground up, shore up statewide turnout for events like Lobby Day to show our power, and play a pivotal role in advancing campaigns like the 32-hour work week, movement on student loans, etc. So thank you so much for your time, and I ask for your vote in December.
Thank you very much. And that concludes this segment. First, I want to give a big thanks to everybody who participated, everybody who sent in questions, and for those who watched, thank you. Special shout out to Ops and Comms for getting this rolling, and also for Stephanie for joining us and keeping time. The MAPE elections take place December 2nd through the 12th, so please cast your ballot for 2 of the candidates you heard from today for the open positions. We've got 2 other election forums coming up. We hope you join us for those again. Tuesday, November 12th for the statewide secretary forum from noon to 1, and Wednesday, November 20th from noon to 1 for the statewide president election forum. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.